is Douglas Herbert, international affairs commentator. Doug, we've had conflicting signals, haven't we, coming out of the Trump administration about the timetable for this withdrawal of troops. This latest Pentagon move doesn't mean that everybody's now on the same page.
No, it doesn't mean that, but it does mean that they're trying to at least give the appearance that everyone is marching more or less in lockstep on the Syria policy. Look, as you just said, how did this whole sort of so-called Syria pullout policy evolve? It started with the very familiar pattern of a sort of impetuous Trump tweet. It was going to happen swiftly. It was going to happen now in almost capital letters, right? Then, as you said, it was a 30 days, a 1-month timeline. Okay, reasonable timeline. It was lengthened then to about 4 months. 120 days. And then it just became completely vague, and there was absolutely no certainty of it. And the real uncertainty built to a head, if you will, when we saw John Bolton making remarks earlier this week during his own Mideast tour, in which he basically said there may be delays in withdrawing those troops of months or even years unless the U.S. gets guarantees from Turkey that it will not mistreat or worse, the U.S.'s Kurdish allied fighters once the U.S. troops pull out. And that, obviously, you can imagine did not draw a favorable response from Ankara, from Turkey itself. And we even heard the foreign minister there yesterday is basically saying Turkey's not going to need permission from anyone for its own policy. What we're basically seeing right now is we're not seeing troops. There are no boots right now pulling out of Syria. And it's very important to stress that the wording has begun the process of retreating and of withdrawing. And that could basically give at least Donald Trump, it's the Pentagon, State Department, signaling to Donald Trump, we're going through the motions of your directive. Yes, we've begun the process of pulling out by deploying personnel, equipment to that region to aid and assist in that withdrawal, but no one has any illusions right now that it's not going to be complicated. There's no specific timelines. There's the conditions under which this will happen. We don't have any dates or anything. It all remains very open-ended, and it still could take a while, despite Trump's initial now we are pulling out.
Now, Turkey has been poised, as we know, to launch a military operation in the Kurdish area of northern Syria. How does this affect Ankara's plans?
Well, as I just said, if you take it straight from the horse's mouth, Turkey says it will not affect its plans at all. Turkey's intentions are, it is always intended, because it sees the Kurdish fighters that have been allied with the U.S. against ISIS as a terror group, essentially affiliated with a connected branch, another Kurdish group that Turkey's been fighting in the southeast since 1984. That said, Turkey, there's one thing, there's perhaps a little bit of daylight between the rhetoric, what we hear from officialdom in Turkey, that we are going to go in whether or not the U.S. is there or not. This is our intention, and what it might realistically be able to do. Because at the end of the day, Erdogan does have forces and realities in the region to contend with. And we talk a lot about a lot of the players of the Syrian regime. We don't talk as much about Iran. We don't talk as much about the Russians. The Russians obviously play a big role in that area. We have to think about the Turkish military itself, which has been stretched thin, as we've seen in other areas along that northern region. We saw the offensive recently in Afrin, that area. Turkish troops are not just simply all stacked at the border and ready to move in as one monolith. They're already operating in various theaters. So there's a question of military readiness, regardless of what Erdogan says. And he's no idiot. He probably knows where his military stands. How much of this is playing to a domestic audience? How much is real intention? And how much is he maybe sitting there at the end of the day and thinking, how is this all going to unspool if we actually do move in? There's a lot he has to contend with. So I would not be standing by breathless waiting for Turkey to cross that border and invade.
Doug Herbert, thank you. To other news now, and